And the sound's good?
All good. Welcome. Hey, Scotty Schindler. Great to see you today. And I'm very excited to be on this call with you to pick your brain, hear about your heart, learn about your journey, and just share with people about what you've learned in this journey of business that you've had. So just to let everybody else know who Scotty Schindler is. Scotty is a very successful businessman, comes from Sawtell, which is a beautiful part of Australia that I also love. And he was an Australian, let me get this right, Australian surfing champion. Is that correct? Also, just a quintessential Aussie guy, optimistic and a straight talker. And I love every bit of that. So, Scotty, you've had some great success in business, and you've sold your business, which was Renet, and now you're onto a new challenge and project. So we're going to be talking about that. I just love to hear a little bit about how it all started for you, this journey of business. I often think that as a kid we have sort of this nature, if we're an entrepreneur, of being an explorer and liking to try new things. And you obviously love the outdoors and surfing and exploring things. So I'd love to hear about, what was it like for you as a kid growing up, and what kind of experiences do you think formed your desire to work for yourself and do all those things that are hard in having a business? What was it for you? Like, thinking back, the environment that you lived in, what was it when did you first sort of get an inkling that you wanted to go down this path?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us, Louise, too, by the way. So,
not a problem.
Yes.
Today in Sydney, nothing better to do.
That's a really good question. So if you go back to growing up, so I grew up, if you listen to the ads from the Smith family now about kids living in poverty, well, that was me. It's like they're talking about how I grew up, and I sit there all the time and go, well, that's just me, secondhand uniforms for school and hand-me-downs and not enough money to go on school excursions. And so that's how I grew up. I grew up with a single mum, although there was 3 dads and 3 sisters that I had also.
Wow.
So without going into the actual chronological history, things weren't all that rosy. And mum did what she could, so that was all right. So if you talk about being an entrepreneur as a kid, that was the furthest thing from my mind. However, I guess the seed or the foundation of what ended up happening to me as I grew up was I had to go to work and make money if I wanted to do things as a kid. Now, I wanted to be a competitive surfer. I wanted to be a professional surfer. As all kids want to be something in sport as a profession, right? So for me to be able to travel and compete, I had to go and earn money to travel and compete. And I had to do that on my own. I had to go and get sponsors. I had to go and get people to sponsor me for trips. And I did. I did all that, and that was okay. But obviously I didn't make it as a professional surfer. By the time I was 16, I realized that, it's just not for me. It's for rich kids to be able to compete. So I had to pull out of competing and stuff when I was 16 and 17. Even though I thought I could surf all right, I had to pull out. So, the entrepreneur thing for me, I guess, started from doing letterbox drops, working at McDonald's, working at restaurants, mowing lawns, doing the milk run, doing all these jobs that I needed to do to, just to buy surfboards or to go on surf trips or do anything that I needed or wanted. So that mindset, I guess, stayed all the way through. So for me, everything I did was upside, if that made any sense. I had very little risk because I came from nothing. So the risk was none. I didn't have anything to lose. And I guess that mindset was looking back a bit of a lucky or a fortunate thing because I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I had no reputation to lose. I had no money to lose. I had no anything. But I did want to, I think you watched the Google Startup Grind Talk. Now, I wanted to be a real estate salesperson. And the reason I wanted to be a real estate salesperson was because there was a guy around Sawtell that drove a new Commodore and I thought he was rich.
Okay.
I thought, well, if you've got to become a real estate salesperson to be rich, that's what I'll do. But I never got a job as a real estate salesperson. When I was 18, I got given a job selling insurance. And I did that for 10 years. So Then after that, I decided to bet on myself once again. That's when I started the company, or started on the journey of IT, and the company Renet was founded.
Amazing.
So that's the short.
I am, as you started to tell your story, I started to get a bit emotional because I grew up in a family of 7 kids and we didn't have much, and the whole secondhand uniform and not having much, which is one of the reasons why I created the Money Mind Fit program, because it was born from pain. And now when you look at yourself as a young child and having to build that resilience and those qualities to go and work really hard and stick with it, I can resonate with that, of having to work really hard. My first job was at a housie, and I had to go around and sell tickets to the old ladies, and they'd lift up their boobs and put them on the table and yell at you if they missed out by one number. But I tell you what, they were a hard audience. But I think, that whole work ethic that you and I probably grew up in, but also that absolute need to make something work, sounds to me like it was a foundation for you to just go, I'm all out, I've got to make it happen. And you had that really strong drive and desire to make something happen. And so, to be able to flip your identity, and I love the way you look at it, because you said you had nothing to lose, but, when your identity's tied up with being, the poor kid or whatever, how do you shift that? How did you shift that belief system of growing up, looking at the guy in the Commodore, and then becoming successful financially? Like, how did you keep believing that was possible to grow financially?
I don't know, but I did. Look, I had just assumed everybody did what I did, if that made any sense.
Yep.
I just had this assumption: if you're going to be successful, this must be what you've got to do. You've got to work really hard. You've got to be really disciplined. So I just assumed everyone did that. So, I didn't have a dad to give me advice or tell me what was right or wrong.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we've been together since we were 16. And, we decided to leave Sawtell and move down to Newcastle when we were 18. And, that was it. We're on our own and we just had to make things work.
Yeah.
So how did I have the belief? Look, I just assumed everybody did that stuff. I mean, I didn't know any different. I just assumed everyone did it. I didn't know there were some lucky kids that didn't have to work because their parents gave them pocket money. I just assumed everyone had jobs. When it came to being, working and doing the extra mile, I just assumed everyone did. I mean, I look back at certain things. My first year out of school, I made windows. So I made fly screens and windows for houses. And that was my first job. And then, but what happened was I was on 170, I think it was $73 or $76 a week I was making. But on the Friday afternoon, we worked only 4.5 days a week. But on that Friday afternoon, I'd make $50 just mowing the lawns and washing the trucks of the factory, just for $50. I mean, I'm going, well, yeah, sure. I mean, what else would I be doing? Normally in the afternoon, the surf's no good anyway. So I'm making money instead. And it was easy. I made nearly as, I made so much money in comparison to what I made for 4.5 days on a 38-hour week. I made $50 just in one afternoon. But I just assumed everybody did those sorts of things. So when you say what was the mindset, well, look, I don't know. I just knew if I had to, if it was going to work, it had to be up to me. I had to make things work.
Yeah.
But the assumption was everyone did that. So for me, it wasn't a mindset shift because I just assumed everyone did it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it sounds to me like you sort of saw opportunities like mowing the lawn and getting the money, but you valued not only the hard work, but getting the small fish, I call them. Sometimes, when we're talking about selling, I talk about going after the marlin, the big fish. And sometimes you'll see, I remember I was on a plane going up to Hamilton Island sitting next to a guy, and he was saying, I said, what are you going up there for? He said, we're going up marlin fishing. And he said, I said, have you ever caught one? He goes, no, but I'd be happy just to see one. And I often speak about that with sales. It's like, if you see a marlin pop up, an opportunity pop up that's a big opportunity, and then it goes back down under the water and the opportunity falls through, seeing the marlin was the glimpse of the opportunity that's going to come. So there's going to be another marlin, but also the little fish are good too. So I feel like, when you value the little fish, and at the beginning of something, it's hard to be patient to keep going if you've only got $50 coming in and you need 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that work ethic, I mean, there's a lot of people who work hard, but they're not necessarily successful in business, right?
Yeah, correct. And you know, it's easy to say, oh, you know, you've got to work really hard, you've got to work long hours, but they've got to be smart as well and effective. And working hard for 1 week or 1 month or 1 year is not a successful journey either. That just means you did something for a short period. You know, I'm talking about, you know, it's when you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
Well, for me, there was another game to play. It was always a long game. You know, working hard for long hours for 20 or 30 years was what I just assumed I had to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I read a quote a couple of years ago that said, you know, I worked 80 hours a week. What was it? I worked 80 hours a week, so I didn't have to work 40 hours a week or something. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that's what I assumed that I needed to do. And, you know, I didn't think twice. It was just, I was happy to do it. And I balanced it out with all sorts of things, and maybe later we'll get into that. But, you know, I did have balance in the end. It was balance. But there was one period in my 20s where I didn't have a holiday for 4 years.
Yeah.
But I paid off my house in my 20s.
Yeah.
6 years, you know, and that set me up. But, you know, not everyone's willing to pay that price, but I was.
Yeah.
So I just assumed, it wasn't a mindset shift. I assumed that if I wanted to pay my house off as quickly as possible, I had to go out and do extra work. So that's what I did. I made that commitment. But, you know, you talk about, let me give you another example. There's 4 of us, right? So I've got an older sister with a different dad. There's me with a different dad. And I've got 2 younger sisters with the same dad. So 2 of us are doing really well. So I've got my older sister, not so good. She's without going into details. And my 2 younger sisters, one of them is really entrepreneurial. She's got several businesses and she's written books and she's an entrepreneur and she owns investment properties and, you know, she's a real go-getter. And the other sister, like the older sister, just wants to blame everybody and say it's everyone else's fault. And, you know, it's where's, you know, me, instead of, you know, what do I need to do? It's always, well, you know, it's everyone else's fault that I'm not successful. And so we all came out of more or less the same mold. Well, especially my 2 younger sisters, they're identical molds. And there's 4 different identities in there. And 2 different paths. 2 paths of 2 went on a path of it's everyone else's fault and 2 on a path of what do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, I'm one of 7, so we've got a mix of everything going on.
Yeah, you've got a wider range.
Yeah, but I love, so what I'm hearing is, you know, you took ownership and responsibility for making it happen and didn't blame anyone else. And the other thing I noticed when I was listening to you and just getting to know you a bit is that you said something about the long term and the focus on the goal. And you just said it then when you said about paying off your house. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with the distraction of everything around them, especially now with technology. I think a lot of younger people, and I'm really passionate about teaching younger people how to basically create their own income, because we all know that it's so unstable now. But, you know, I think some younger people work really hard. My kids have got a really strong work ethic because they've watched us go through ups and downs financially, and they watched us have to reinvent ourselves, and they watched us work hard all our lives. So they didn't have it all easy at the beginning, you know, and so they know the value of hard work. But I think there's a lot of kids that are like that, but there's a lot of people that are like that. There's also a lot of people who are struggling because the world's changed so much. So how do you stay, what's your advice with, say, somebody in business? There's a lot of people starting in business or trying to be known or trying to build their business. What's your advice in terms of where should they niche themselves? And because I know a lot of clients come to me and they kind of know what they want to do, but they're not certain and they're not clear about, they don't have clarity. So I feel like when you've got real clarity, then you move forward. So what's your advice with people in terms of where do they put their attention if they're in business? Like, how do they niche themselves? Does that question make sense?
I probably can't answer where they should niche themselves because I don't know their industry or market. But I'll tell you the story about how I niched myself in the real estate.
That's probably a great way
to do it. So first of all, I came up with a methodology in the 90s called the Rule of 100. And that rule of 100 is something I can't explain now. It'll take me an hour. And it goes something like the first 100 seconds, first 100 minutes, first 100 hours, first 100 days, first 100 weeks, first 100 months.
Okay.
And everything goes on that journey of change and pivot. And is it working? Is it not working? Clients go on the same journey when they're becoming clients. You know, they go through that first 100 seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, weeks, months. Everyone goes through it. In business, when you're starting out, it's the same. So I wanted to start a business or have a bet on myself. And I gave myself all my 30s. So I gave myself till I was 40. After a midlife crisis, I went through at 27. But basically, let's call it all of between 2000 and 2010 was the period I gave myself a chance to start a business of some sort.
Yeah.
Now, I chose a field of IT. I chose a field of, and I didn't even know what it was going to be. But I chose that field. So someone else might choose the building industry, the health industry, the whatever industry, right? So they need to find their own niche. But here's what I did. It took 6 goes before Renet was established. The Renet was the 6th one.
Right.
Let me give you a backstory on that. So the first thing I started was a medical website. And within 3 months, I realized I was in a partnership with a guy and that wasn't going to work. There was 3 of us. So I had 2 website designers and we were supposed to be out selling and building the business. And turned out that the website designers were doing their job. I was doing my job and he was just hoping for a free ride, the other partner. And he owned the name Medicab. So we ended up ditching out of that. And I kept some of those clients for like 10 years after that though. So, which was pretty cool. Anyway, so that failed. That was my first one. I won't include website design in any of this because that was just a necessary or a necessary evil for me to learn website design. But what I started doing then was like local portals. And I started a portal called GoCoffs. In other words, it was like local search, as if you've heard of local search now, or some of this local stuff. Anyway, that didn't really take off. I didn't get any traction, but it allowed a little portal system, so that was okay. And then I decided to start learning networking, like as in computer networks, peer-to-peer and Windows 98 and setting up your printer and all that stuff. And I thought maybe I could get into the whole security side because that interested me, and I thought there was a big opportunity in the future for it. Turns out it was true. But what happened was the very first client I went out and did after I studied with the books of networking was I went, oh, this is too hard. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing the computer stuff right now. But it was a good foundation because then I learned all the computer networking. So I did all my networking for years. And then the next thing I did was my wife wasn't that happy with that. She told me to go start looking for work and she got up me and she almost kicked me out. This is now a year in, right?
Happy wife, happy life, mate.
Well, I nearly needed a new one, but that's another story. So basically, I started looking for work. But at the start of 2001, I did my resume online. So I was doing websites. So I built a website about myself, like your LinkedIn profile today or your Seek profile. Now, not only did I not get a job, I never even got a job interview.
Right.
It was way too left field for everybody to think of a website to go and check out someone's.
Yeah.
I mean, you do that automatically now before you even look at their paperwork. So,
yeah.
But anyway, so I didn't get a job interview, but I went on holidays up to, with my grandmother at the time. She wanted to go to the Gold Coast. So we went up to the Gold Coast with her in May 2001. I bought 2 books on programming, one on databasing, one on actual online programming. And that changed everything. I thought, well, I can make some stuff here. So I started building a car yard website or a portal. I started building an accommodation portal. I started building a real estate portal. So I started building those and I managed to get a couple of sales on everything. But the real estate one was the one that I felt had the most traction. So without going into the long story, in February 2002, I started the company Renet. On the basis I had 20 clients. I just thought I had 20 people now using this software. I thought, I think this is going to be a company. But even Renet was a play on words. I'm a big fan of duplication or time duplication and having multiple opportunities in different things, right? So everything you do should have multiple benefits or rewards. So Renet was a play on words. So if the real estate network type name didn't work, what I did a lot of at the time learning how to build websites was rebuilding people's websites. So I was renetting them, if that made any sense.
Okay, cool.
So the name could have either been real estate or it could have been just Renet.
Yeah.
So Renet was born anyway. And I thought if it does work, I could also start a real estate network. Anyway, I never did that either, but I just went down the software path. Then I had to go door to door and build the company and build the business and create that. So I worked on my own until Easter 2003. I never knocked on another door after September 2003. So in other words, nearly 4 years later, I'd been through 6 iterations or 6 pivots, and finally I felt I had a company.
Yeah.
So you want to know what I tell the people, how to find their niche? Look, I don't know. You know your niche, you know
Yeah.
your market, and you have to go to market and find out. And you
Yeah.
might think one thing and then out with another. Now, I was self-taught programming. So, man, if I had been a little bit smarter, a little bit more educated, I could have had the accommodation, the car yard, and the real estate one. So I look back all the time and go, oh, but at the same time, I managed to make one work.
Yeah.
So I'm going, well, there's an A+ report card on that history anyway. So I'm okay with that. But I often look back and go, man, if I was a bit smarter. But at the same time, if I give you the backstory on that, at the turn of the century, we had the Y2K. Everyone was concerned at that. We had the .com crash in April 2000. We had all the Murdochs of the world and the Packers of the world saying this internet thing is not going to last. You know, so I was uncertain about the future of this whole internet thingy anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But there was no certainty in where I was going at the time. It could have just as easily died. I mean, there was so much doom and gloom around anything to do with the internet at the turn, and it didn't. It actually ended up being a blessing in disguise. People now call me a trailblazer, but I certainly didn't feel like it at the time. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key, because, like, listening to your journey, you know, you did have to try a number of things, and I feel like people want to know that something's going to work. Well, we all like certainty, right? So we want to know something's going to work before we try it. But until we actually try it, we don't know if it works or not. And what I'm hearing is that you had the ability to make good decisions to let go of things that weren't working as well, because rather than try to, you know, flog a dead horse, if you like, with one of those businesses ideas, you actually picked one, set yourself on it, and went and consistently stayed on that track with the real estate, with the ReNet. And I think the ability to do that process of transition is one of the biggest things I see people struggling with. I know I have in the past as well, is just, especially if you're somebody who is creative and gets a lot of ideas, you know, how do you focus in on one thing? And how do you know at what point did you decide that's working or not? Like what are your markers that help you decide? Obviously, having sales is a good thing.
I was about to say money. People were paying me.
It's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? But, you know, I think, you know, putting your attention, sounds to me like you were really good at putting your attention on one thing and going, this is starting to work, I'm going to see this through, rather than you could have, because you sound like a creative kind of guy, sounds like you could have gone down a few different paths.
I could have. And I saw people come and go in the industry who did that too in the end. You know, some of my competitors that were in the space over the next 5 or 10 years, some of them actually evaporated and disappeared because they did get distracted. And I'm not sure if they disappeared as a company or they just disappeared out of our space. Not my problem. I didn't really care, right? I was only caring about what I was doing. But certainly some of the competitors came and went. And some of those turned into some really good opportunities too, by the way. So every time there was one of those Marlins, I took advantage of them, right? So it's amazing how many of those I got to take advantage of. But yeah, so some of them came and went. I don't know the exact reason, and nor do I really care. You know, I had a model of being sustainable, profitable, and manageable at all times, right from the get-go. I never borrowed any money for it, but at the same time, I never got paid for those first 2 years when I was trying to find a business, when I was trying to find something.
Yeah.
In the first 2 years, like I said, up until September 2003, I was only on $200 a week. So I paid my wife and I $200 a week each, which might be relevant to maybe $400 today or something. You know, it wasn't much money.
Yeah.
But that's what I needed to get started, get the momentum. But I guess I was lucky in the sense that I did pay off my house in my 20s. So I didn't have that house debt. So everything was upside for me. But one thing for sure was I wanted to create a system. It was all about a business system. I had that philosophy the whole time. And if it didn't fit the system philosophy, I pulled out. And that was why I pulled out of the networking. I just couldn't see it being the things I wanted to do. It was going to rely upon me like a car mechanic. And I didn't want anything that relied upon me. I wanted to have something that was smart and intelligent. Not that I didn't want to work, not that I didn't want to grow the business. I wanted to do all those things, but it had to run through some business philosophies for what I thought was good long term.
Yeah. And that's that almost that left brain approach of being like, is it sustainable? Is it profitable? Is it manageable? When people want to follow their heart and do what they're passionate about, but sometimes there's a bit of a dichotomy between that and what is working. And, you need both, don't you? You need that be creative and futuristic and see opportunities, but you also need to be realistic and go, well, what, is this sustainable? Can I run, can I build it? So a lot of people, I think, struggle with that. I see a lot of people in that transition between they've grown something, but they struggle then to move into that space of leading and scaling. That little spot there where they know what they're doing, they've got a good product or service, they built it to a certain point, and they get kind of hit this wall. And it's often a redefining point for them personally too, because I think they're at this point where, hang on, am I enjoying, like you mentioned, midlife crisis in your when you're 27, but they kind of get to this point, go, okay, I've got some income coming in, I'm at this point, I know people like what I have to offer, but this isn't working for my life anymore. And there's often some gaps there for them to be able to scale and be able to lead people. And have you come across sort of that with people that I know you mentor and you coach people? Do you see that a lot? Because I feel like that would be
standard thing.
Yeah.
That's actually just dead standard. Everyone goes through that challenge of, okay, I've got a business, and how do I get to the next point where I've got a team of 5 people, for example?
Yeah.
Or even duplicating through 1 or 2, because you've got to, I had to be doing the work of 3 people before I could afford to hire 1.
Sure. Yeah. And that's, I think, the hardest point for people, isn't it?
You've got to be working so bloody hard. And then it's a backward step when you actually hire them, because now you've got to train them up. So, one of the benefits I had was I wasn't a high school dropout. I stayed there so I could go surfing all the time.
I love it.
But it was easy for me I learned this through the insurance building sales teams, right? But it was easy for me to hire people who were smarter than me and better than me for 2 reasons. One is because they all were. Anyone I ever interviewed was smarter than me. It was no doubt. So that was easy for me to do that. So if I gave you my high school report card and showed you, my skill set, I mean, I now teach people business. In economics, I got 45 out of 47. That wasn't my pass mark. That's the position I came, right? In English in year 11 and 12, I got 70 out of 71 students, right? And once again, that wasn't my exam mark. That was my position. So I beat someone in English. I don't know who that was. They must have turned up.
It was the other guy that was out in the surf.
It was easy for me to hire people that were smarter than me. In fact, I hired one guy was a dux of the school.
Wow.
Smartest kid in the school. I hired him. Hey, you come work for me.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. The second reason why it was easy for me to do that was I was self-taught. So I grabbed some books and I was self-taught. So I don't have any paperwork anywhere that says I'm qualified in anything, like nothing. The only thing I actually have is those school report cards, which I got behind me there. I have them on my wall. I found them at Mum's house one day and went, you're kidding, aren't you? I mean, I failed just about everything.
Did it say Scotty talks a lot in class?
Yeah, attention seeker and all that stuff,
I used to get that one all the time. What's great about that though, it's interesting, like I have coached so many people over the years and gone into organizations, and sometimes people are super smart academically, but really don't have what I call that grassroots ability to see opportunities. They struggle to change culture because they're looking at everything from a very academic perspective. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with, I'm a massive fan of education, in all education, but I also see that, that ability to naturally create opportunities, work hard, all the things that you've been speaking about, and have a go and have great people skills. Just that common sense stuff is also what a lot of people need now, because it's a great thing to have a degree, for example, but if you don't know how to brand or market yourself or sell or articulate your value, it's pretty hard to go and get a better job. Or if you don't know how to sell, how are you going to be? You might have the best product or service in the world, but if you don't know how to sell,
you don't know how to present it.
Make sales. You don't have money coming in, and that's a massive one I see a lot of people struggle with. And I had to learn how to sell. I learned in my 20s, and I was so shy. was friendly, but I was shy, you know, and I vomited the first time I did a sales presentation. And, you know, I can relate to so much what you're saying because, you know, my journey of learning has been very left field as well. And I found out that we actually, just on a little side note, I realised we've got something in common, Scotty. And when I was watching one of your videos, and that was that I too did secretarial college.
I didn't do secretarial college. I did secretarial studies.
Oh, whatever, study.
6 months for the
We're both like secretaries, but you know, how you start isn't always how you finish, right? And so tell me about you're talking a lot about systems, which I love because, you know, I think creating systems is very difficult when you're, you know, starting up or building a business. So your system 1357 sounds like to me like a compilation of a lot of stuff you've learned. You put it together to help people. So tell me about that. Tell me what it's for, what's its purpose to help people, and what it's all about.
Yeah, well, look, I had System 1357 as the foundation of starting the company Renet. I didn't actually come up with the term until only November 2019, when I had an epiphany moment and realised in the 90s we had a 1357 plan. And I realised after talking to someone about the 90s when we were selling insurances as sales managers that I actually had a 1357 also, but I didn't have nothing to do with the plan. I had it more in the system side of things because I was big on systems. The way I motivated the team and followed through and everything else, and the better the systems, the better the results. So I was big on systems, and you know, you can rely upon systems no matter what the market's doing. And I don't know, I just find systems, if you implement them in your business, the right systems, the right people, and the right procedures, things are way more effective. So I came up with a better way of describing all the business philosophies into System 1357. But once again, it's not like reading a recipe or you know, this is how you bake a cake. No, it's not. It's not a recipe like that. It's a recipe of all. These are all the business principles.
Go for it.
So let's get into the 5. So with the 5 it was the business judo, which is how I ran the company through the principles of business judo. The time duplication, about working smarter rather than harder. The rule of 100, which was the process everything goes on with staff, with clients, with product release, with everything. The business of thirds, which is like your strike rate and understanding that, you know, success and failure and things like that, and making sure you leverage upon that. And the last one was sugar and cream. So how I built the company was in my own mindset, was about the sugar and cream. And I was big on that. Now, obviously I can't get into those 5 business philosophies in the next 3 or 4 minutes, but you know, those business philosophies alone could be used in any single business, in all businesses and everything. You could be in the hospitality industry, you could be in the coaching industry, you could be in the car industry, you could be in the software industry. Those 5 business philosophies alone will reinvent your business over the next 10 years. None of them are overnight. I'll just follow step 1, 3, 5, 7. No. They'll completely revolutionize the way you think about business as you move forward. And the 7 was to do with time. You know, there's 365 days a year. There's 1,440 minutes a day. There's Monday to Friday. You know, you can use your time so effectively. I looked at it as, I also had a term that I used called school teacher hours.
That sounds good.
So I broke things into terms. I never got 9 till 3, but that's another story. No,
yeah.
School teachers out there. But I broke things into terms. So I had time with family, time away, and I got those opportunities, as well as I had terms where I just worked and worked and worked. You know, I maximized on that. But anyway, school teacher hours was one of the philosophies I had. And I always looked at, with the 7 and time, 10-year goals, my 10-year projections. Where do I want to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, I'm going to be 30. In 10 years' time, I'm going to be 40. In 10 years' time, I'm going to be 50. In 10 years' time, I'm going to be 60. What do I want to look like, and what do I want to have had achieved in this decade? The real macro goals, not micro.
I love that because you've got the macro goals, but you've got the systems, which is, you know, the day-to-day. What am I doing? Is it effective? So it's being able to pull the dream into reality and make it happen. And but you know what I love about what you're saying about the school teacher hours and the terms and the chunking. You know, one of the things that I notice a lot, and have had to learn to change myself as well, is the fact that so many of us people just get so de-energized because they're just flat out on emails, on LinkedIn, on everything all day, go into companies, and seriously, the burnout is just ridiculous now, like, what I see. And so a lot of the pieces around being able to manage your time and your energy is a huge, huge need these days. And, you come at it from that angle of how do you systemize and how do you stay focused. I love the sugar and cream. I mean, that's just awesome. It's not keto, but it's who doesn't like sugar and cream, right? So, I love what you're saying about that, because that's smart, because, what's the point of doing all this? And this is something else I've seen a lot, is people go into business and they just hit a wall so quickly because they haven't had to, if they've been used to what I call an employee mindset versus an entrepreneurial mindset, which is, the ability to stay focused, the ability to manage your time and your energy really well, and the ability to take the big dream and then actually execute it. Because a lot of people have a big dream, but, it just doesn't happen because they can't execute well. So, all of everything you're saying just sounds so amazing. And I know we haven't got too much more time, left on this webinar, but it just was so great to hear, about your story and what you're doing. And I just think you're going to help so many people, because you have really done the journey, and you have, you have been successful. And so you're just putting your knowledge now as a mentor into helping other people do the same thing. And there's such a high need, isn't there? So,
well, yeah. I mean, I've only had it live now for 6 weeks, right? So I had the epiphany moment. I released the first version of everything. Actually, not even everything. I released the first version of about 10% of everything I'm going to put up about 6 weeks ago. And the feedback has been insane of the people in there. One guy wants to sign up his company. He's actually into it. He wants all his staff to do it. We're negotiating how that's going to work and unfold. People from the States are the ones that amaze me. We think everyone in America is so up there and with it, but they're just like us. They're having the same challenges and the same issues. And, they're really opening up. That's my big recognition, because I grew up in an American insurance company.
Okay.
The Americans say, hey, we relate to that. To me, is like, winning a trophy in a sense. So,
I think we've got a lot of unmined gold in Australia, and I'm super passionate about this. I'm in a collaboration with, some of the amazing women in this collaboration for International Women's Day that we're in, and they're from all over the world, and they're just such incredible women. They're so generous and giving, and we all just want to help people with this stuff we're doing. But, on that note of Australia versus, the US or the rest of the world, I feel like Aussies, we're almost a bit self-effacing. Sometimes we're a bit like, sometimes we don't put ourselves out there as much, but there's so many Aussies that have got unbelievable stuff to offer. And I get really excited when I see an Aussie success story like yours. But you're just such a genuine, humble kind of guy too. Like, there's no, you're very real, which I said to you when we started to chat earlier. And I love that, that I think, that sense of optimism and spirit and hard work and being just real, having a bit of a laugh at ourselves, is something that is very unique to Australians. And I think it's something really attractive to the rest of the world. So, I think you can be a real encouragement, and people can look at, anyone who's listening to this can look at Scotty and see, where you've come from, what you've achieved, which you should be so proud of, and I'm sure you are. But in a way of holding on to that person that you are, that humility, the larrikin, with the surfer, and coming through, wasn't the easiest kind of upbringings, I suppose. You look at the positive in it, and you've pushed through it, and you're really a great example of a great Aussie leader, businessman, father, husband, wife, whatever, surfer. So I'm just really, I really appreciate you coming on the call with me, and I know that what you've shared is going to help people, and And then the last thing I want to say is the next time I'm in Sawtell, I might make you take me for a surfing lesson.
Yeah, no worries.
I told you about what happened to me in Sawtell when we chatted on the phone the other day, but I don't think I should share that publicly. So thank you so much. Anything you want to say to finish off or share or?
No, not really. I mean, I think one of the biggest lessons, I guess, is to keep things real. And, it's really easy to look online and think everyone else is hugely successful and just because they might be popular on social media and things like that. And what I can tell you is what I've learned a lot out of LinkedIn is there's a lot of really spongy people that want to learn, and that's all good. But there's some people that are really influential on LinkedIn and they've actually really don't have the substance or the background, or they're really not achieving much at all. They've reached out to me to say, what do I do or how do I get? And I'm thinking, I thought you were already there. Based on your profile, I thought you were already there. So it's easy for someone to feel like they're failing because everyone else looks more successful. So keep things real. Stay focused on your own journey, your own goals. Learn from other people, but learn how to use it back in your journey so you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Don't take everything for face value of what you see on social media. Because like I said, it's easy to think other people might get more likes or views or more popular or they've got, well, no, it's learn from that stuff, take advantage of it, keep things real in your own patch and your own goals.
I absolutely love that. And it's amazing advice on any social platform for anyone of any age with any goal, because it is really important to stay in your zone and in your line and know that whoever you are, you've got something of value, and it doesn't matter if you have got 2,000 followers or you've got 100,000. You're still you, right? And you still have something to offer other people. And I think people need to hear that message a lot, because we all can get caught up with looking at what everyone else is doing because of technology, and that building that sense of strong identity is so important, isn't it? So that's amazing advice, Scotty. So great to chat to you. Can't wait to talk again and see what we can cook up together. And yeah, hope it's a sunny day in Sawtell.
Actually, it's a bit cloudy today. So the surf's no good, which is terrible. So I didn't have a surf today.
All right. So your website is scottyschindler.com.
That's it.
Yeah. And we will. And
or system1357.com.
Okay. All right. Great to hear. And we'll speak again soon. And thanks so much for taking the time today to share your wisdom.
That's all right. Anytime. Yeah, happy to help your viewers, Louise.
Good on you. Okay. See you.